Hello, hi everybody. Hello. So we're just gonna wait for another, 10, 15 minutes till the people join us, and then we start.
Sounds
Hi,
good.
I love Young.
Hi, Devdeep.
Prepared for your trip tomorrow.
I mean, kind of.
It's gonna be hotter in Guwahati. It's really hot.
Yeah, I know Shillong is still pleasant. It is
Hmm.
getting hot,
Hmm.
but in the evenings, we're still wearing like light sweaters and it's still
Yeah,
present. But
yeah,
Guwahati,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's gonna be a challenge.
okay.
Uh, no, but I mean, in the evenings, it's really nice. It's really pleasant. It's like it drops down to 20-ish, around 22, 23, 21. But the days are like 35. Yeah,
Ugh.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's good to know.
Kumam will be moderating today.
Okay.
So we just wait for him to join and the others. I'll send
Mhm.
some messages to everybody.
Aku, are you still playing your guitar?
Yes, I'm just fooling around.
Please do, please do. I was enjoying it.
No, it's all right.
Yeah.
You guys should like this. Yeah.
I'm going to post more status on Northeast Lightbox's account because apparently that's how you boost numbers.
Lapdiang will go first, right? You will go first, right? Okay, okay.
Don't mind. Anything's fine. Yeah. You're welcome to go first if you'd like to. Mm.
Thank you. Is it recording already? You can
yeah.
edit later, right?
Yes, that's what I figured because I didn't want to forget it later on. So I was like, okay,
Okay,
why,
okay.
why not?
Lapdiang, we miss you at the book launch.
I know. I really wanted to be there. I wish I could, but I had a workshop yesterday here in Shillong, like a little away from Shillong, so I couldn't miss it. Otherwise, I'd have loved to come to Imphal.
And I also met Aku there.
Oh, nice.
Yes, it was. I mean, first time I was listening to Davidson speak, and I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Davidson. I'm looking forward to read the chapter by you, and same thing, Labdiang's also.
Thanks, Aku. I mean, I think I was
Thanks.
kind of very conscious of the fact that there were people from, especially of like older folks, who've done a lot of work before, like say someone like me could do any work. So I think I was very conscious, and just like a little secret, I had to drink for the session just to like have get enough confidence.
That's what I always do before I go on stage. So I'm with you there. Don't worry.
Yeah, I was like quite nervous, especially like just also the kind of space, like the space was new for me. I've never been in that space before, and the crowd as well, and also the fact that Norris, anything and Zuban collaborated on the launch. Uh, so in a way, just to be mindful of the kind of efforts, the kind of resource that went into it, and also like the Haripriya and the rest of the folks who have contributed to the anthology, and also the years of work that Zuban has done, anything has done in their own ways, um, and have kind of come to this. So I think I was just also mindful of the history behind, let's say, anthologies that have come out of Zuban, in the years, and in the years, as well as uh, what else? Also, the team were there, so I hope it went. I think I hope it went okay, Aku. I mean, you were there.
It
You
went
witnessed it.
fantastic. I really enjoyed the session.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially you, man. I really enjoyed listening to your story, how you grew up, and yeah.
Yeah.
I was. I mean, I'm grateful that I was there.
Couldn't really catch up with you much later. I think I was constantly switching between the Zuban crowd and the Zuban team, and this one anything team, and the on the other side there was this bunch of my take
Yeah.
folk. So I was like
No,
switching
no,
between the two.
we'll catch up in the residency, properly.
Right, right. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Dev, we're waiting for some time.
No, we can start. Actually, we are as many people as we could be. So I think why not?
Okay, okay. So, as previously kind of decided, we start with Labdiang, or do we need to go back to what we had done previously, like a small recap?
Yeah, maybe that's nice just to round it up a bit.
Yeah, and how do we want to do that recap? I mean, I have almost like a, you know, I have almost sort of minutes of the meeting or minutes of the session. I have that with me. Uh, but if anyone wants to, let's say, bring up, remember, remind, or retrospect on the previous session, I think we can spend 5 minutes on that if that
Yeah.
works. As far as I remember, I took some time to process both Aku and Chim, how do I pronounce? I always get it wrong. Simre's session, let's say. So it took me some time to process it, and honestly, I really haven't had the mental space to kind of process it, let's say thoroughly because of the launch that happened yesterday, and also other work that's happening, including a crowdfunding for the Mahi Center, which is based in Moirang. So, but in retrospection, one thing that I had also sort of partially, thought through during the session itself, last time, and I had noted down some questions, in fact, for both Chingrimi and Akhu, um, in both their sessions and in both their presentations, also their recap, or let's say their summary of their works. I kept thinking the person, you know, I kept thinking about the person in their journey, in their art expressions, in their creative, political, activist expression. So I kept thinking about the person, the relationships that have gone into their work, the intersectionalities, to be even more precise, intersectionality of who they are, their ethnicity, their gender, their class, their religion, their political ideology, and also especially that came more pronouncedly in Chingrimi's session, where that sense of diaspora, which Dev also pointed out, the diaspora, the sense of dislocation, location. So intersectionality uh, was something that kind of I felt strongly. So the personhood, the intersectionality, and the uh, you know political and art expressions is something uh, I want to highlight. So, Akhu, Chingrimi, anyone, are there any thoughts around that? Around who you are and the context and the history uh, within which all this played out, and 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 how that have also kind of gone into, for instance, in the case of Akhu, the foothills, a community art space, for example. So what has gone into making that, you know, uh, of who you are, and the social realities around the intersectionalities that constitutes us and the world around us, and also in Chingrimi's work, especially and precisely textile, ishi, and in fact ishi particularly. Uh, so how do all this come to play out? Uh, I would want to really love. I would really love to hear a bit of reflections, maybe from Chingrimi and Aku, if that's all right, and also the rest of the people. Yeah, can we just spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes on this, Dev? Does that work?
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Please.
I don't know how do I start. Mm, I mean, I am someone who constantly question my, identity as a Manipuri, as a Meitei who grew up in Imphal, and I mean, while I was growing up, uh, I was too immature or too young to think of all this. But when I landed in Delhi, in a completely foreign surrounding, I had no idea, how was Delhi like and how would the people be. And slowly, there was a time, as I also mentioned in my session last time. So actually, Delhi keeps reminding me, that who I am, and maybe that's not who I am actually, but but the surrounding around me was so nasty, so rude, so mean to a boy who just landed in the capital. And and now, after having spent like 12 years in Delhi and then 1 year outside the country, then now I'm here. And when I'm here also, like, I got tired of who I am actually. Like, uh, when I say when I'm tired of who I am, I mean, the kind of music that I make, the kind of things that I wrote in the past. So I got tired, and again, I consistently, try to look at myself from a different perspective. That's why I wanted to explore the roots of the Manipuri diaspora. I don't know if I am going, to the track that the division asked me, but I don't know
No,
if
it's
I'm. Yeah,
completely on track, and I think the fact that you allow to take us through this, I think there's nothing
yeah.
precious than this.
So to me, Meitei, as a Meitei guy in Imphal, as a majority, what do you call, we are the dominant community in Manipur as a Meitei. But I look at this, Meitei communities in Bangladesh. There are hardly like 10,000, in population, the Meitei population out there, and they've been there since, since 1819. Before that, how they migrated during this Burmese invasion, which we call the phase. This 7 years of period is called, it's known as 7 years devastation. That's how, when the Burmese invaded, and this migration happened during that time between 1819 to 1826. And in last 2 centuries, they have been preserving their culture, they have been preserving their language, Meitei Loan, and and the way they see, Manipur, it's totally different from what I see, Manipur standing right here in the soil of Imphal. So to me, it gave me a chance to look at Manipur from their perspective, and then there's a certain, I don't know how to share this with you guys, but there's a certain hope, when knowing that there's this community, living like miles and thousands of miles away in Sylhet, and how they see Manipur. So uh, I don't know what kind of identity I'm looking for myself, but I think it's a process for me, and I don't know still how to define my identity. When I say identity, my music, whatever that I do. Yeah, and as Davison mentioned, the foothill. It's a space that, I love giving platform to artists like myself, because I grew up being here, and there was no platform where I can talk about my stuff, where I can play music. We have very limited space now. Thankfully, I think many youths have, not just youth, but have started creating platform and all. But I'm also doing that, providing a space where we can talk, we can chat, we can drink, we can do whatever we feel like. And I don't know, Davidson, if I have answered your thing.
Yeah, I want to come to Chingrimi as well. But Aku, if you want to again reflect further later on or at any point, I mean, we can talk anytime amongst us. Uh, also quickly, can you give us a reference in your artworks, in your art expressions, this sense of, let's say, this sense of this process of finding who I am, this process of finding who we are, um, the process, the questioning, um, you know, the 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 way Meitei, like you said, the dominancy of Meitei from our grounding in Imphal versus the kind of worldview, that based on the grounding in the Meitei community in Bangladesh. Is there a is there uh, so there it seems to me that uh, there's a kind of a, let's say, tussle or trying to uh, sort of parallelly see uh, peripherality and the center and the periphery, right? Something, the majority and the minority, and and very interesting is the fact that we're talking about Meitei community as such, but on different contexts, in different contexts, and how that brings liminality on one hand, but also majoritarian or the centeredness on the other. So, if I read you correctly, is there any reference or example that you could also share with us in your works? So that's something I want to think about, or at least take the chance to ask that. And Chingrimi, I'm also trying to understand, how do you relate to, Aku, or how do you sort of respond to Aku? Because um, again, if we are reading it correctly, if I'm reading it correctly, and also it's very interpretative otherwise, that sense of belongingness which also runs through your session the last in last time, so how do you relate or respond or in fact differ from Aku, if you could reflect on the lines of who you are, your context, your rootedness, your sense of diaspora, so all of that put together, any thoughts? And please don't take any, please no pressure on giving articulate answers. I think we are sitting together to sort of get through our innermost layers and nuances and and ethos, which often we don't have the language. And yeah, sorry, I mean that was a long question, and if anyone is making sense of it, please help us, yeah, go through it together. Chingrimi, if you have anything to respond to that, thanks. Devdeep or Labdiang, anybody, because Labdiang and I'm also, I can't help but wonder about these questions also, about diaspora, about belonging, about our identity, about who we are, about being a woman, about being an artist, you know, identity politics in Shillong, Meghalaya, things that I'm already anticipating. So anyone, please. I mean, but particularly I would love to hear from Chingmimi also. And if Chingmimi, you're not, let's say, up to, speaking about it, please feel free to type it out or send us any link if you have, anything that can, anything through which we can communicate. It doesn't have to be verbal all the time. So yeah, David, yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm actually pretty glad that you asked this question because it's also something which I reflect in my own practice pretty much. In every body of work that I work with is this question of positionality. Like, what does it mean for me to be a practicing artist in Guwahati, in Assam, and the trickle down to practicing in the region in Northeast? Like how Aku said in his session last session, that the idea of the cosmologist Aku is very different than the idea of the Meitei Aku or the singer Aku or the Manipuri Aku. And then where do all of these aspects or all of these narratives, where do they come together? Where is the confluence? And in that confluence, is there a question of, do we have a positionality in being practitioners in our own disciplines within the region? That does this fact mean something? Do we have a responsibility towards our own practice, towards the greater sense of practice through our own practice? And whether it is disciplinary practice, whether it is identity politics, whether it is sociocultural belonging, all of these notions, do they somewhere come together and form this greater understanding of who we are and what are we doing here? Like, would it be different if I made films in Delhi, or would it be different if I was sitting in Berlin and making films about whatever, about my identity or whatever? And does the fact that we belonging from this region, sitting in this region and producing work in this region, what is the outcome? What does it project to our audience? Or do we have a responsibility in saying that we are visual practitioners or art practitioners or cultural practitioners who are here, who are here and who are doing stuff?
Okay, complete silence. Dev, I think you and I bombarded too many questions, so let's blame ourselves. Let's blame ourselves.
I'm actually really interested in what also Lapdiang has to say about this, because she has also been traveling the world with her practice, and it would be really interesting for me to hear also her thoughts about ideas. So
maybe I should I just start with my presentation and then get to
Yes.
Is that okay? Should I just like go ahead and begin with my presentation and perhaps see if I can, answer these questions, and how does my work sort of, what comes out of my work and how my work has been progressing or defined through the years I've been working. So of course, Chingmimi, if you are here, please do feel free to say anything, or anybody. If not, then I can start.
Yes, looking forward, Lapdiang.
Okay. I'll just present. I had made a PowerPoint presentation of photographs, and I thought images could help maybe to give you an idea. Okay. Can you see me and hear me? Or not me, but can you see the PowerPoint?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll just begin. My name is Lapdiang Syiem. I am from the Khasi community, and I am from Meghalaya. I live in Shillong. At the moment, I'm based in Shillong. I completed my education till 12th here in Shillong. I was studying in a convent school, and then I did my 11th, 12th from KV Nehu. And then I went off to Chennai, where I completed my bachelor's actually in plant biology and biotechnology. And I, as Aku had also said earlier that he had his background in physics. I did my bachelor's in botany, but it was when I was in Chennai, when I was doing my bachelor's, that's when I discovered the theater. Back home in Meghalaya, I was exposed to performance only through the school plays that we did. And coming from a convent education, it was so, later on, I realized in my life, I felt so restrictive. It grounded me in certain ways and values, but at the same time, I came to a point where I knew I wanted to break out of that and find my own identity. So it was in Chennai I started my journey in the theater, being involved in college plays that we had. And I remember I really wanted to, I did not really enjoy botany so much. I thought I would go on to do environmental science for my master's. But I discovered the theater, I discovered the drama club, I discovered festivals happening outside of the college that I was part of, and also joined a theater club in Chennai. After that, one of my cousins in Shillong, actually, he told me about the National School of Drama and said, why don't you give it a shot? Because they always have, students coming from all the different states around the country, but there had not been anyone from Meghalaya as yet. And we had a serious talk where he said, why don't you just give it a try? Of course, I had to talk to my family and say, this is what I want to do. I've discovered the theater, I've discovered my space as an actor. I really felt different whenever I was on stage and performing, found a different side to myself, I found a voice. My parents, of course, were supportive. They were apprehensive. My mom wanted to see me in my third year, wanted to see me perform and see if I was really serious about this. The rest of my family members were just not convinced. One of the common things they said was, what will you do? Will you join Bollywood after this and dance around trees? A very stereotypical image of what I would do. But eventually I did join the NSD. It was a long process. I was there for 3 years. And for me, I really, at the National School of Drama, it was a space of so many things happening at the same time. Yes, I was trained, I was given my training in the theater arts. Yes, I learned skills, I developed my body, my acting, my understanding of the theater. But at the same time, I really felt lost. First of all, we had to perform in Hindi. All our plays were in Hindi. We were doing Shakespeare in Hindi. We were doing Bertolt Brecht in Hindi. We were doing all the plays in Hindi. And to be an actor, I remember some of the teachers who were there also had said, are you sure you want to be an actor? Because as an actor, you have to be fluent in how you speak Hindi and how you express yourself in Hindi. And I remember it kept coming, you're from the Northeast. Are you sure you can handle this? Why don't you try specializing in design and direction instead? Because there you work more technically. And I know a lot of us who chose acting as a specialty coming from our regions or states in the Northeast felt it was a real struggle. you know, how do you express in a language that you don't think in? And it made me it made me also go back to think about Khasi, you know, my language, because I was educated in a convent school, and I was told to speak English, get rid of all my accents, speak English in sort of a very neutral way, pronounce my T's and my D's. And I'm, you know, initially when I was in school, it was, this is how you speak. But I realize now it's so much an oppression, you know, it's so much a colonial hangover to say, oh, I have to speak English this way and that. And language for me, between Hindi, Khasi, and English, I started to really question, what is this hierarchy of language that we have? And if having to perform in Hindi, I really felt I wanted to rebel against it. And by rebelling, I wanted to challenge myself and say, yes, I will see what, you know, can this language destroy me or can it make me? I don't know. So at NSD, we did a lot of different performances. One of the plays that I will always remember, I think, was a Bengali play of Badal Sarkar, and we did this performance we went to Pakistan to perform this. And it was interesting to, I played a Bengali woman speaking in Hindi, performing this play in Pakistan. I don't know if I'll ever go to Pakistan again, but that was an experience that left something in me to see myself, to try and see myself in so many different identities altogether as an actor, as a performer. What you see here is actually a picture of, so after the NSD, the one thing I think I briefly want to mention as well, we had a modern Indian drama that we studied at the NSD. It was a paper subject that I really struggled in, because I saw that we did not have any content, again, from the place I was coming from. You know, our idea, our understanding of what defines modern Indian drama just did not include the Northeast region. Yes, we have, you know, the late Haisnam Kanhailal and Ima, Savitri Ima, and you also have Ratan Thiem, but playwrights or artists from Assam, but so few really, that again, I found myself trying to grapple with how I fit into this whole scheme of things, a whole idea. You know, I did feel completely lost. I learned a lot of skills. This picture here is performing with the circus in Kerala. We did an adaptation of Shakespeare's The Tempest. So I learned a lot of skills. I came out of the NSD thinking I still wanted to specialize, and I thought physical theater was something I wanted to specialize in, because I wanted to move beyond language and look at my body as a performer, as a woman, and the story that my body could tell. And growing up in Shillong, you know, where my background, I was always taught to be very proper, you know, in the way I move, and not be loud and not be expressive. And I really found a struggle when I discovered the theater performance. I wanted to just be wild. I think I wanted to discover what my wild side could be. And by wild, I think for me, it meant breaking barriers and breaking boundaries and conventions that define us. This is one of a, yeah?
Sorry to interfere. Did you mean to change the slide as you speak?
So I have this, and then what slide do you see now?
Like we see Lapdiang Syiem in the first slide. It's not moving.
Oh, it's not moving. Okay.
Yeah. Right. This was supposed to move.
Okay. So this here is picture of me performing in the circus. It was the circus in Kerala. We had performed this actually at the Serendipity Arts Festival. I think this was 2016. when I got back from Copenhagen. So I was in Denmark for 2 years, studying physical theater, again, like learning all these different European styles of performance, again, completely far away from home, completely removed from home. But I think what was interesting for me was how I found home, an idea of home in all the different places I traveled in, and living in Denmark, in a first world Scandinavian country where everything was so sanitized for me. It was lonely, it was dark, a rich country. I didn't have enough money, I had enough just to support my education, but I did not have enough to sort of really lead like a very luxurious, privileged life in Scandinavia, but it had its experiences of trying to survive. I think one of the experiences of being there was when I met people. They kept, before they asked me, they would judge me first, and they asked me if I was from the Philippines, and they thought I'd come there as an au pair, as a babysitter, and it was so. I think the kind of racism that I was exposed to abroad, back home, everybody had this romanticization of, oh, she's in Europe, oh, she's in Denmark, oh, she must be experiencing like such a nice life. But it was also challenging because it really left me in so many uncomfortable ways. There were moments when I just felt completely rootless and lost. People felt it was so convenient for them to stereotype me into thinking, like, they kept saying I was from Southeast Asia, I was from Thailand or the Philippines, or kept fitting me into these convenient boxes. I remember I was with my friend in Sweden at one point, and I met this woman. I was going back. I met this woman, and she looked at me and she just said, "Go back to Tokyo." And it felt like a blow, but at the same time, I was like, okay, I would love to go to Tokyo, actually, like, but just the kind of racism I was also exposed to. So yeah, I came back home in 2016, and why did I want to come back to Shillong? I missed home. I think it was really an emotional connection that brought me to come back. I had reached a point, I think, even mentally, that I had lived away from home for a long period of time. When I was in Denmark, I did not come home for the 2.5 years I was there, and I started to miss home. And at the same time, I really wanted to see, all the whatever I've learned as an artist, how would I practice it back home? Would it make sense for me to live as an artist back home? How would I support myself, and how would I relate to the society, the community that I come from, that I identify with, being Khasi, with my family? I came home 2016, and that's when I started to immediately got into performing. I think for me, the theater or performance, when I feel I've lost my ground, I think I look to performance to find a way out, to find myself again. Here is a picture of the solo piece that I had done of Kanoa Kalikai. It's a dramatization of a Khasi folktale. So I wanted to look into the content that we have, and I guess what drew me, if you could say, immediately drew me, of course, are the oral narratives of my community, the folktales. My mother herself being a poet, I started to look at these stories and see how I could adapt them or reinterpret them So this is a picture of in 2016 I had done Kanoa Kalikai. It's a story.
Lapdiang, yeah,
Yeah.
the slides are stuck again. If you can just take us through, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
sorry. Yeah. So this is Kanoa Kalikai. It's the story of a woman who takes her own life. She jumps down a waterfall after she discovers that she had accidentally eaten her own child. And the child was actually cooked into a curry, or into, not a curry, we don't have curries here, but into a dish, meat dish, by her husband, the second husband that she marries, the man she is with. He cooks her baby and feeds her own child, and she takes her own life. And we know the story of Likai through this waterfall, which is present in Cherrapunji. For me, I wanted to tell the story as Likai telling the story. I think as a woman, how would I tell the story? How would I look at, to the point of, her taking her own life, to the point of the struggles that she would have to go through, and just the pain and the helplessness. So Likai was performed in 2016, and we performed it at a school, at a cafe, and also at a house, just an empty house that was just a house at that time. Now it's become a cafe, but it was just a house at that time. One of the things for me, I think, coming back to Shillong also, was knowing that the theater we don't have like a infrastructure or sort of a theater is something that still has been largely unexplored. I mean, it existed in the past. There were groups in Meghalaya. Most of them were run by men, very much a male-dominated space. You had the comedy club of Seng Biriau Khasi comedy club, and then you had the Rimpai Theatrical Club, but lots of them were male writers, performers, playwrights. So I think for me it was a new space to explore, and to also see if the language I was trained in performance, how would it connect to the people here, to the audience here. So I'll just quickly take you through the different slides. I adopted, as you can see, the jankirsha, which is this checked piece of cloth that women wear around the house when they're working. For me, I wanted to use that as a costume because, it signifies like a working woman. And for me, it was so important that my art, my profession is work for me. And I want to respect that. And I also have a close connection to the jankirsha because it's worn every day by the women. And for me, it is my working costume. The next slide. Then I started to move on to different performances, writing and devising, continuously writing and devising. So this is a human beings. It was looking at, I wanted to explore the style of the grotesque. Here I had this costume that was, had breasts that were sticking out, and I had had sewn a uterus into my costume and had a balloon fixed into it. And I wanted, as a woman, I've always, my understanding of my body has always been, I've always, I think, been more comfortable with an identity of being androgynous, and have my moments of not, this thing of like, are you feminine enough, or this and that. I've always been uncomfortable. I think it's a process for me to search what my body is as a female body, but also being more comfortable with a neutral body that could take on any, a neutral body. I did not want to be defined by my breasts or the my body parts in a way. This was a piece of, looked at violence, it looked at displacement, it looked at, I remember Sophia, which was a humanoid robot that, we spoke about artificial intelligence. So a lot of different things. I will quickly go through it, otherwise it'd be too long. The next is, these were posters we had designed. This was a balloon I had put in and gave birth on stage, wanted to see if, what would I birth on stage with a balloon, and I burst the balloon. So it was a very sort of buffoonish, grotesque performance talking about identity, about displacement, about violence. The next one is reaching out to grassroots, I stand uprooted. So over the years from 2016 to 2022, just briefly go through everything. This was a performance made immediately in response to the coal mining accident that had happened here in 2018. Here in Meghalaya, and miners were trapped inside, our rat hole minings. And coal mining here is a huge issue that has destroyed so many lives, that has harmed and endangered not just our environment, but our communities of people. So reaching out to grassroots, I stand uprooted was that. So you can see here again the Jankasha and also the Mura, the cane stool. For me, that has become my stage. I carry it with me wherever I travel and use it as my prop, as an extension of my body, as who I am as a performer. So the Mura becomes, I had adapted Khasi folktales of a boulder swallowing a child while the mother is working. And the act of the boulder swallowing, for me, speaks strongly of being swallowed by the earth or being stuck somewhere in a mine. So there were 3 different poems that I had used here. More pictures of that. Very quickly. This was a collaborative project with people from Wales looking at the Welsh and Khasi cultural dialogues, because the Welsh missionaries had come here in 1841 and brought Christianity. And I worked with a group from Wales where we wanted to see what this relationship was. The presence of the church, the church here in Meghalaya is very dominant. For me, it's so, through this project, I really wanted to challenge what this history meant for us. A lot of people have redefined what the Christian community is for them. I know my parents, for my mother especially, it is a community that she relates to so closely. For me, I find it so difficult to identify with religion, and I really wanted to see, how this history, through this project, we looked what came out of this history. Yes, our written script was given to us by the missionaries. We are an oral culture, but to look at a lot of different things, actually, to look at the oral, to look at the archives. The missionaries have a recording of the archives of what the Khasi Jantia Hills are. And for us, it's the memory of what had happened to us and having to live with that memory, the consequences of that memory into the generations. We performed this in Calcutta at the Indian Museum. We performed all over Meghalaya, different parts of the country, and also in Wales. The next piece is a digital piece. It's called Nganhyar Shawa, I'm Going Down to the River. This is very recent, the pandemic, where storytelling. So for me, I think storytelling is, I would identify as a storyteller, and my body is a storyteller, my words, my poetry as stories. This is a piece that we had done about the river that flows through the city. And it's a river that you can see it directly from my house. I spent a lot of the pandemic in isolation at home, and the river, the view of the river was what I was confronted with. And I wanted to, it's also a river that is slowly starting to resemble a dream. So we had done this digital piece. The work is available online. Ngan Hiar Shawa, I'm going down to the river. It's a Khasi saying, we hear it. So, I mean, I don't know if it's a Khasi saying, but you hear people say, I'm going down to the river. It's so common. But for me now in the city, living in Shillong, Ngan Hiar Shawa, where would I go down to the river to? The river has become so dirty. The tributaries have become steeped in dirt and pollution. How do I go down to the river again? I can't. And even if I do, it would be a polluted river. So we worked with different mediums of shadow puppetry, documentary, tracing the river. Now I'll just go through, this was a piece called Bite. Again, this was performed outside. It was at a residency in Switzerland. It was about looking at our identities through tooth. I have teeth that are uneven, and I remember when I was in Delhi, one of my acting teachers said, if you ever wanted to make it to Bollywood, and I don't know why Bollywood keeps coming into my life by other people, but he said, you will have to straighten your teeth. You have to do something about your teeth. And you hear these little things that are told to you about, this is wrong with you, your facial, they judge you by how you are physically, makes me really angry and uncomfortable. This piece, Bite, was for me, performing it in Switzerland. I wanted to talk to an audience, a European audience who have perfect teeth. They have access to dentistry at a very early age. And so I realized I go there and I realize my teeth look different, and people will probably know where I am from just from my teeth, because I never had access to proper sort of dental care. So Teeth Bite was a piece I had done. My most recent piece is called Who Rules the Roost? It's a Khasi saying that I come from a matrilineal society, so where the lineage is traced through the women. There's a Khasi saying that when hens begin to crow like roosters, the end of the world is near. My mom had written a poem challenging this, really, to say, it's time that women crow, and what is the problem with women crowing? So I performed this piece, again, it was an online digital piece during the pandemic called Who Rules the Roost? And was to challenge the saying that if hens were to crow, let them crow. If hens were to crow, the end of the world would be near. That signifies the end of the world. So I wanted to challenge that, and I created this piece, Who Rules the Roost? Again, I used, you see the turban and the jankasha. So the turban is a very masculine, the male wear the turban, and women wear the jankasha. And for me, I wanted to put the turban and the jankasha together in one body and see how that felt. How it felt for me, and how this combination of, the turban and the jankasha, what would it do to my body? So Who Rules the Roost? And that's a picture there. It's another one. And other films, we experimented, animation films, working with the social welfare department, talking about the child. Hakper but Itirid was a sock puppet presentation we had done, which was with the Department of Protection of Child Rights, with the Social Welfare Department again, just to talk to kids about consent and being able to say no, and we used this through puppets. And that. All right, thank you. Yeah, I think I've gone on for too long. I will stop. That was my presentation.
That was very dense.
Yeah.
Very dense. So again, as per plan, I think we take like a 5 minutes break, whatever, tea break or bathroom break. What does kublai mean? Just before we.
Kublai means thank you.
Oh, kublai means thank you, and it reminds me of
Yeah.
something that I can't remember right now. Kublai is a word that I found somewhere else. Not that I can recollect.
Where have you been, Davison? You don't know
I-
Kublai yet?
I've been displaced in so many ways. Yeah, displaced in so many ways. Even in my own memory of words and histories and cultural markers. Yeah, displaced in so many ways. The closest I have is English language right now, but yeah, displaced in so many ways. Yeah. What is Kublai Aku?
Yes, thank you, man.
Oh, just that?
Yeah, Kublai is thank you in Khasi. But funnily enough, Blay means God. So Kublai actually means God bless.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
it doesn't have a Christian connotation, though Kublai is just but we use Kublai to say thank you. So
Okay. Yeah. So since we are already 1 hour into this session, 5 minutes break and we come back quickly for the next session. Okay. See you in 5 minutes.
Kublai.